What's up, guys? I'm Uncle Freedom, coming to you on a glorious and well-deserved day off. How's it going? First things, y'all like, subscribe, share, tell a friend. That is how we push out more two-way content to the masses. I would also tell you to take a moment and check out my friends over at outlastsupply.com. They actually carry some of the things we're going to talk about today. They are amazing people, and if you were to search for personal defense, I would bet that speakeasy door would lead you to a place of Shangri-La where you may find some really cool stuff that just, yeah, you should go there. You can also find me at violentalgebra.com. That is my website where I sell nothing YouTube. We're not going to show firearms today, but I'm going to talk about them, so I feel it's important to make that distinction. I don't sell things, I provide educational content for the masses. I try to make people better today than they were the day before. Remember, guys, if you're not doing something today that could ensure that if they cloned you today, you kick your ass tomorrow, you are wrong. You should do more. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, in the the aftermath of all the things that have happened, we have SIGs doing SIG things. We have Tim Kennedy doing Tim Kennedy things. I'm going to talk about gear. This video is primarily, honestly, just for me, man, because I am passionate about the subject. I love these things, and they are 100% probably the most used thing I have on my person every single day. To me, they're the mark of a man who's got his stuff together, or a female who's got her stuff together. They show me that you care about certain things, and if you wanted to be a part of a community that can wax and wane philosophically for hours about things as minute as how something does what it does, it's this group of people, man. It just is. And that is why should you own a watch? Everybody should own a watch. I don't care. It's not debatable to me. You're not going to convince me otherwise. I think everybody should own a watch. I just do. It's a fantastic tradition. It is something that you make memories with, that those memories can then be passed down, tied to that object to your children later on in life. They're awesome. It is legit a tale as old as time. Like, honestly, since we started being able to track freaking time, the ability to keep accurate ledgers of how that time has passed is not only, it's not just essential when you're syncing up with your buddies before your rebel group hits an objective, but it's just in daily life, man. Like, wearing a watch signifies to me that you care about time. Mine, yours, you're not going to waste it, and that's kind of important. And wearing a watch, whether you realize it or not, subconsciously signals that to the people you're talking to. It can also be a status symbol. It could be nothing more than a tool, right? But it's a watch, all the same. And I don't think I've been without a watch on my person outside of being in like a freaking MRI in probably the last 15 years or more, unless I was in a fighting school where I couldn't wear a watch. So in my life, day to day, the watch is the single most used tool that I have. It's literally used dozens upon dozens of times every single day, more than any firearm I own, more than my pens, more than my knives, even more than my flashlights. Now, I know somebody's going to be like, yeah, my phone tells the time. That's right, but you look like a total freaking douchebag when you're over here glued into your phone to figure out what time it is. This is classy. This, you look like a douche. Stop doing that, man. We spend too much time attached to our phones as it is. And if I can find an analog solution that does the job of a digital thing that annoys me to no end, I'm going to select it. And that is, for me, a watch. It's also an amazing community. Not unlike, the gun space. We have the snobs, and then we have the people that will tell you things like, my $50 G-Shock is just as good as your Rolex. Here's the kicker, though. That dude is not wrong, actually. This is the only place in the world where that kind of a conundrum actually does exist. It doesn't do it while looking as cool. It has no status really attached to it, but he is in fact correct. It will do everything that Rolex Submariner will do and a whole bunch more, and it'll do it better than the Rolex will. It's just fact, man. That's kind of the beauty of watches. But with watches, you get all sides of it, right? So if you had the 2011, you have the 2011 handgun world guys on, or you have the handgun guys on this side. So on one end, you have the 2011 dudes that are rocking a Rolex and Omega, and they're more of a status symbol and typically are used for what they're actually designed for about as often as the staccatos are. They'll never get used to their full capabilities, so to say. How many guys do you know like that? And on the other end, you have the guys that are running Glocks and M&Ps and Walthers, and those guys are running everything from G-Shock to Seiko to Citizen. And then in the middle, you've got the guys that exist like me, which is like I run like super high-end Gucci clocks. I run 2011s, and you may find me wearing everything from Omega and Rolex to like a $30 Miltado. It is how this world works. So here's your crash course in the humble wristwatch, right? I've had a lot of people reach out to me and ask questions like, what watch do you have on? What does this mean? So I figured I would put this in a video format. For those of you endeavors people that wanted to learn more about this world, I'm going to give you a crash course over the next of about 2 pages of notes right here. We're going to rock this out really quick, and you will leave this understanding and knowing more about the subject than you thought there was to know about the subject. You will no longer be an expert in it, but you will at least know what you're looking at. It is truly my hope, though, that I will in some way, for those of you that aren't in the watch world now, have some hand in inspiring you to step into this world, because it truly is a rewarding hobby. It's amazing things to do, and it's a great group of people. And like I said, you can pass this stuff on, and no government's ever going to try to regulate your watch, right? This is this place, though, that we get to show some of our personality in the watch world. Like, I can tell a lot about you by what you wear, right? Like, I know for a fact that you are not a super outdoorsy dude if you're wearing like a dress watch with like 30 meters of water resistance, which is basically like, please don't wash your hands with it territory. So let's talk about the differences, right? So first, foremost, you have analog versus digital, right? This is the big elephant in the room, right? So digital watch, like this guy here, your standard G-Shock affair here, right? You have a wristwatch which uses, an LCD screen that is going to provide a ton of information, actually, and is typically going to be more accurate than any other watch you're going to have. And it's really useful for more complicated stuff when we look at like chronographs, stuff like that. Then you have analog watches, which analog watches are exactly what they sound like. Analog watches use the hands on the face of the watch and markers to tell you what time it is. The seconds count. You can also see it'll show you a date on a date wheel that revolves maybe a day. It'll also, you can do mechanical chronographs. And in the case of like my watch I'm wearing today, you'll notice a hand over here on the side, like with a big arrow. That is a GMT hand. So that hand is actually showing me a second time zone as I wear this watch, right? And then you have the combo watches, so the Anti-Digi watches. Watches like the Arnie, the Navihawk, the Mudmaster, which use hands that tell you the time, but they use a digital display to show you the date, the chronograph functions, countdown timers, alarms, calendars, whatever, right? So the one I brought down to show for that one is my Casio Mudmaster. This guy uses LCD screens to show me things that are more complicated, but the compass and the time on here is actually done with the actual like analog watch face, which is pretty cool. Then you move outside of that realm. Now we have other stuff to talk about. We have smartwatches, right? While I am almost violently opposed to the Apple and Samsung watches, these Suunto watches and Garmin watches are actually pretty cool, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I actually like using my Instinct and my Tactics from Garmin to link into like my geoballistics app for problem solving for ballistics data and stuff, because it's awesome. I can set waypoints, I can track my movement. I know things like sunrise, sunset. I have like the moon charts at my fingertips. I can do compasses. I can even get alerts from my phone, which is the reason I am vehemently opposed to smartwatches, because I absolutely hate the fact that I have something else that tells me when my phone rang. After that, you have Quartz. So a Quartz watch is pretty much synonymous with the fact that on a Quartz watch, you have a ticking seconds hand. It usually ticks one time per second. Now, there is a very expensive complication for a mechanical watch that makes it tick once a second. It's known as a deadbeat complication. They are astronomically expensive to look just like a Quartz watch. I got nothing. I will tell you, though, that Quartz is far more accurate, for the most part, than any mechanical watch movement is going to be. It is also going to be universally less expensive, except for the case of like the extra like high accuracy Quartz movements that are made by like Seiko and stuff like that. But great examples of a good Quartz watch are things like the Citizen Eco Drive, which is powered by the sun. It is a Quartz movement, to G-Shocks, to your Luminox diver, which is again a Quartz watch, to Bertucci fill watches that are pretty good. And then you have my bread and butter, my favorite kinds of watches in the world, and those are mechanical watches. Again, my most favorite style of movement. That's actually what that word is. That is what powers the watch itself. What kind of movement does it have? You'll see that on like a website where it says movement, and it's got like a thing. It'll say like ETA 2824-2, right? Or Miyota 8204. That is the movement. And that is what makes the watch actually do what it does. It is legit, though. You are wearing a tiny beating machine. I had one down here. So, like, if you look at the back of this watch, right? So this is what's known as an exhibition case back. You can see that little rotor in there. And if I shake this guy around and get it where you can see the balance wheel, you can actually see that balance wheel spinning over here on this side. That is actually oscillating back and forth in the case of this watch at 12,600 vibrations per hour. And what that leads to is a second hand that, as opposed to tick, 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 like a normal watch, you get a sweep on these watches, which is much more pleasant to look at. Let's be realistic. It's much cooler to look at when you see that. So, in addition to being a tiny beating machine, there are typically two things you're going to see. You will see them referred to as 3 Hertz and 4 Hertz, or 21,600 or 28,800. Now, 3 Hertz movements, again, 21,600 vibrations per hour. This is going to be all of your 8 series Miyota movements. So that is like this 8204 and this Citizen ProMaster Diver, or this Citizen Fugu right here. This is also an 8204 movement. To some very common stuff that's made by Seiko, like the NH35. So this is an NH35 in this Invicta Pro Diver here. You also have an NH35 and probably one of the coolest, like lower cost watches on the market right now, this Tactical Frog right here. This is a full titanium case, and that is housing an NH35 movement made by Seiko. Then you have like the 4R series, like 4R36, 4R35. Those are used in like the Seiko Prospect stuff, like the Samurai, the Alpinist, the Sumo, the Monster, the Turtle diver and stuff. But a lot of those movements are also used by tons of micro brands all over the world. Things like Tactical Frog, Militato, stuff like that. They're using those kinds of movements in their watches. And then you will see there are some stuff that operates at a slower rate, like the H10 is kind of famous because the H10 is actually an ETA 2824, which is a better movement, that they went in and changed the beat rate to 21,600 over 28,800, which gives it an 80-hour power reserve on a mechanical watch versus the normal 40 you would see. The power reserve, when I say that, I am referring to the fact that if you took the watch off today and it was fully wound up and you sat it down, how long will it run laying on your desk until you have to move that watch to make it go again? Because automatic watches are actually powered by your movement. That little yellow thing you see moving, that is a rotor that is winding my mainspring all the time. You also have hand wind, which has to be wound every day. But typically with a 21,600 movement, you're going to see somewhere between 37 to like 43 hours of power reserve on those. And then you move to 4 Hertz. 4 Hertz is 28,800 vibrations per hour. This is the standard used by people like Rolex and Tudor and almost every Swiss movement known to man, with the exception of like the Co-Axial movement from Omega, which is actually going at 7 Hertz. Most of your Swiss watches you'll find, Certina, Mito, Brain Dead, Squale, stuff like that, Eterna, they're going to use some variant of an ETA movement or a Solita movement. You'll see things like the 2824-2, the Solita SW200. So in my Squale I've got on right now, I almost fell out of my chair. On my Squally I've got on right now, this is operating at 4 hertz or 28,800 vibrations per hour. It is a much smoother sweep. So that what that actually is in the 21,600, you are getting 6 ticks of the second hand for every second that this thing runs. On 28.8, you're getting 8 ticks for every second. So you're moving 2 additional movements per second, which makes it look smoother, not as jerky as it goes around. So in this one, you also have all the Miyota 9 series. So if it starts with a 9, it's a part of this. Again, sorry. And it's in most of the Swiss and German watches that you'll find that are out there, like Zen and stuff like that, that are not running an in-house movement. Now, an in-house movement means that that movement is produced by the company that makes the watch. Citizen owns Miyota, Seiko makes the NH and stuff, so that Seiko uses their own movements, Miyota uses their own movements, Orient uses their own movements, Rolex their own, Tudor their own, but then you get into like Glycine and like any micro brand in the world, Squally, they are using movements made by another company. Now, you will find these 28,800 vibration per hour, so the smoother, higher end movement, you will find them in watches from like $400 to like $1,800. And if you start moving into in-house now, you can get into the $18,000 world. But another beauty of the mechanical movement itself is, again, that sweeping seconds, right? The only crappy part about mechanical movements is, like a car, they require service, right? It's a tiny beating machine doing its thing. It's got lubrication and stuff on it. And every 5 to 7 years or so, or 10 years, however you feel about it, you need to send that watch into an authorized distributor or an authorized maintenance center where they will actually take this watch apart, go through, replace any worn parts, relube it, put it back together, and regulate it, making it run at a better speed. But the big one, and I've said this before, is they will never be as accurate as Quartz. And the reason being is because there is variance in what's known as amplitude. How hard that balance wheel swings back to forth can influence also the position. If you're sitting like this or this or this or this, right? It makes that balance wheel move at a little bit of a different speed. And what you'll see is where a Quartz watch, like something as simple as this $50 Casio Duro, which is probably one of the best budget dive watches on the planet, this thing runs plus or minus like 4 seconds a day, or 2 seconds a day, if not better. Some Quartz movements are running plus or minus 2 seconds a year, versus a mechanical watch. Like if you were to take something like this NH35, this runs at like plus 20 to minus 40 seconds a day. You start moving into like the Miyota, like the 8 series stuff that's in the Pro Masters. These are running about plus 10 to minus 15. This one actually does pretty good. This one runs plus 5 to minus 3 a day, which is really, really good. My Fugu's about the same thing. This Squally is running at plus or minus 2 seconds a day, which is about as good as you're ever going to get out of a mechanical watch. So they will never, ever be as accurate as Quartz. So when I tell you something like the G-Shock actually is just as good and probably better, that's why. Because they're less expensive, they're more accurate, and they do more things than a mechanical version would, but they're just never going to be as cool. So for the prepared defender guy that we've got out there, there are really 3 kinds of kind of watch styles that I would recommend for what we do. In mechanical or Quartz for the most part. The first one is going to be known as the field watch. So the field watch are kind of no frill. They're very legible. They have decent enough lume. There's some great examples out there. The Swiss stuff like the Hamilton Khaki is probably the most famous field watch known to man. I have a few of those. They're great. The Rolex Explorer is amazing. They're just really cool. You have the Tudor Ranger, which is also equally amazing. But then you have stuff on the budget end of things, like the Orient Defender, which is amazing. You have like the Seiko Alpinist in that $400 range. Or something like this guy here. So this is the Militato. This is actually a Quartz movement. And if you notice that second hand is ticking a little bit, that's because it actually ticks 4 times per second. But this is actually a Quartz movement powered by a battery that's got like 2 years, or it's got like 5 years of battery life. So there are some great examples of a field watch. The reason I say a field watch is because they are built for the environments in which we're working. After that, it's going to be a pilot watch. Now, pilot watches are usually really amazing. They have the ability typically to track more than one time zone. They're usually going to be pretty robust. They're going to deal with low pressure environments pretty well. You have famous ones like the Laco Flieger watches, the A and the B dial. You have things like the Squale. This is actually a combination pilot dive watch. So this has a 24-hour bezel on it that I can move to track a third time zone if I want to. It has a true quick set GMT, which means I can jump the GMT on my own to set for a new time zone. I'm tracking multiple things. They're also very legible. When you look down on them, you can look, you can see, you can tell what that watch says at kind of a glance. We usually have really good lume. You also have other things that are out there like the Rolex Explorer 2 is a great example. The GMT Master, which is probably the most famous one. And a lot of people don't realize this, but if you look at the bezel of mine, I have a dark one and I have a light one. This side here is daytime. This side here is nighttime. So this is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the GMT scale, and then 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. on the GMT scale. So that is the reason for the bicolored bezel. You will see a bicolor bezel on dive watches all the time like this guy, and that is because this is a countdown bezel, and once you get the last 15 minutes, you're aware because it's a different color. But legibility is the king when we start talking about pilot watches. You need to be able to tell what it says. You need to be able to tell what it says in the dark. And probably my favorite version of a pilot's watch, which I don't own and I plan on getting, is the Zen 104. That's SINN 104. It's probably one of the sexiest pilot watches I've ever messed around with. But you also have other really cool options in the anti-digi world for those, like the Navi Timer, the Navi Hawk, the Flight Master from Seiko. Like, these are really cool watches that incorporate things like chronographs, second time zones, slide rule bezels and stuff for you to make calculations on the fly. Pretty cool stuff. You can do a ton of stuff with a watch. Most people don't even realize it. And then my favorite kind of watch, if you haven't guessed by like the fact that I have rotating bezels on pretty much everything I own, my absolute, bar none, favorite style of watch is a dive watch. Dive watches, as kind of a general rule, are far more robust. And especially if you get into things that are known as an ISO certified. So if you look at the bottom of this watch here, at the very bottom at 6 o'clock, it says automatic divers 200. So in order for it to say divers or air diver on the bezel, it means it has to meet, oh man, I can't remember the damn name. It's the standards organization. So what we're talking for is if it's a 200-meter dive watch, it's actually tested to 250 meters of pressure. You have to have certain things. ISO, International Standards Organization. You actually have to have like lume on the seconds hand so that you can see in the dark that the seconds hand is moving. You need to be legible in so much darkness, it's so thing to represent so many feet underwater. You have to have a unidirectional, which means it only goes one way, dive timing bezel so that you can't bump it and increase the amount of time or decrease the amount of time you've been underwater. But these are actually used to track like how much time you've been underwater, right? So if I were to jump in and I was going for an a 30-minute dive, right? I can rock down to that 30, and as I move around to my lume pip that's over here, as I'm getting closer to it, I'm going to see it. You'll also notice a lot of time with dive watches specifically that the hands will typically be a different shape for the hour hand and the seconds hand, so you can easily differentiate them in the dark when you see them. And if they're not different shapes, you will usually, like this uses tritium gas tubes in the Luminox, you will typically see the lume being a different color for the pip and the bezel as well as the minute hand, because that's what you're tracking. But I mean, you can do everything in this world. Like this watch right here, this is a $180 Citizen Pro Master ISO certified 200-meter dive watch that will do everything on the planet I could ask it to do. It'll keep laughing and ask for more. It's got fantastic lume, and I did that for $180, all the way to like $1,000 watch I'm wearing right now, right? I can do the same thing with both of those watches. Just one of them makes me feel more special when I wear it, right? But this is a stacked area, right? You are going to see everything as high as $20,000 and $50,000 for watches in this category. If we start talking about like the Ultra Deep from Omega, the Deep Sea from Rolex, the Blancpain's 50 Fathoms. To get into really nice established dive watches, you are starting in the 450-ish range and moving up. You can get a really good one from 450 to like $1,800 to $2,000. Like, you're into real good, like, established stuff, and it's awesome. But again, you're going to have amazing lube. That dive time bezel is always going to be there. They are absolutely tough as nails, and you can just run the crap out of them. So all of the watches we've talked about are available typically in quartz, as well as mechanical. And then again, a dive watch you can always run is a G-Shock. These are all 200 meters of water resistance. They're all supremely legible. They have backlighting, so you can see in the dark. It doesn't matter. They're all great. So there are some crazy options in the Anti-Digi world, though. Out there, you have things like the Breitling Rescue or whatever it is. It's awesome. You have the Breitling Aerospace, which has a digital analog display, which is amazing. You have things like the G-Shock Mudmasters, the Seiko Arnie, which is what he wore in the Predator movie, which is pretty cool. And you get it all with these kind of things. You get fantastic lume, you get all the complications, which are what features are known outside of telling the time. You get all the complications in the world. You get extra time zones to track. You have alarms, you have chronographs, you have a light, and you get some more fun stuff like this Mudmaster. You get solar power. But that stuff is only available typically in a quartz package, and you can get into that. This is a high-end quartz watch, and this is only like $270 or $300. Versus, I said that's a high-end quartz watch at $300, right? This is a very good quartz watch at like $250, all the way to like $1,000 for this one I'm wearing now. So what do I look for spec-wise, right? If I was going to choose a watch to go through my life with me and live in the world as I'm going to live in it, right? Especially for my prepared-minded guys. So here's what I want, bar none. I want a screw-down crown. So a screw-down crown, even something as simple as this Militato right here, right? This is a $30 watch. But the crown itself, I can't just pull the crown out. I actually have to physically unscrew this crown, which means that I have a very sealed environment, keeping that water resistance rate good. If you have a push-pull crown, I have actually bumped things, pulled the crown out underwater, and flooded my watch, and it was trash. So a screw-down crown is a must for me. A minimum of 100 meters of water resistance. Minimum. Yes, I know you're never going to dive to 100 meters of water resistance, but your watch will take it. So anything you're going to do short of that, you're going to be good to go. So I like a minimum of 100. If it is a dive watch, I want 200 meters at the low end. 500 is typically where I cap. I don't really need it to go more than that because they start getting a little chunky. For me, it's essential. I gotta have a date function, man. I use the date function all the time, and it can be a lot of places. It's at 6 o'clock on this one here. It's at 3 o'clock on this one here. Even on cheap things like the Casio Duro, we're sitting at 3 o'clock on that guy. You get some weird positionings like 4 o'clock on the Eco Drive, and then we can even do things like a full day date complication at 3 o'clock on this one. So not only do I know what date it is, I know what day it is, which is important for a dude that works all freaking night. After that, I need fantastic lume. Man, I want my watch to be able to be legible in the dark. Again, I work at night right now, and it is awesome that I can be driving around and it can be 3 o'clock in the morning and I can look down and read my watch. That is way more beneficial than you realize. Yes, tactically speaking, it may not be a great idea. You can always have things like this guy here that have a built-in light into the watch itself, which is pretty cool. I want that. I need it to be extremely legible. I don't need there to be any confusion about where 12 o'clock is when I look at the watch. So a lot of dive watches, you will notice, like almost universally, the top marker for 12 o'clock is a different shape. And the reason it is a different shape is you'd never want to guess where the orientation of the watch is, right? Look down, see the watch. And then I prefer personally a 20 or 22 millimeter lug width. Now, lug width itself refers to the area where the strap goes through, right? So this is a 20 meter lug. 20 and 22 are the most common lug widths you're ever going to find. You can get amazing stuff from tackstraps.com, like this guy here. This is a USA made Cordura straps, absolutely beautiful. You can get cheaper leather straps for stuff, and if you like changing out straps, you can get NATOs, which are awesome single pass straps that even if you broke a spring bar, the watch won't fall off and hit the deck. They're great. Or you can do bracelets, but it is easy to find aftermarket bracelets. This is an aftermarket Long Island watch company, Jubilee, but you'll notice I run bracelets on a lot of my dive watches because they are designed to meet ISO compliance for a minimum pound weight before those things give, using whatever spring bar and bracelet they came on. But watches are one of the areas where we get to show some personality, right? You get to have some fun, show a little bit about who you are while building those memories, passing that stuff on to your children and influencing other people around you. It also sends the subliminal message that you also give a crap about time and you're not here to waste it. And I appreciate that. So the last thing I'll leave you with on the watches is whatever you pick. There's nothing wrong with having $20 and $30 watches. Nothing at all, right? In fact, they're fun, right? They're fun watches. But if you're only going to buy one, buy something good. Buy something like a Citizen Pro Master Diver that is going to work no matter what, right? For a lot of people, spending $200 on this watch may be the most expensive watch they'll ever own. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know why? Because that's a real dive watch. It's a respected watch and I love it. And sitting here as I sit to you, $1,000 and like 180 bucks. Get something good. Use it and it will quickly become one of your most prized possessions. That's just how it works, man. These things travel through our life with us. They build memories with us. I can tell you I was wearing my Glycine Combat sub when my youngest daughter was born. I can tell you where I was when I got this ding or the scratch. It's just awesome. If you want to know more about the traditions that we're losing as a country, here's a link to the traditions video. I know this has been like kind of a long rambling video, but I love this subject, right? And I don't get to talk about it very much. And I figured I would put it out there since I've been getting a lot of questions about everything to do with watches. Here's your crash course. Hopefully you're more informed today. And I hope in some small way I've possibly influenced you to join this amazing community, to start wearing a real watch and to build those memories and pass those on to your kids. So I am Uncle Freedom. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Until next time, I'll see you later.